We can't just keep making FNAF videos all in a row. People are gonna think that's the only thing we talk about. And we need to lock in on this Sonic video. I already said—
We can save it for movie 4 hype. Secret of the Mimic just dropped and people are already wrong.
Cori! You can't just say that! We are not the arbiters of FNAF canon! Oh, they think M1 is possessed? Yet they're wrong. We usually don't do plot recap videos, especially not so soon after a game released, but we have a lot of thoughts on the timeline, and we're not really sure where the confusion around this game is coming from, since it seemed pretty obvious to us. So we're going to explain the backstory of Secret of the Mimic as presented in the game, then explain the Mimic's actual plan and how it's been misinterpreted.
Hi, I'm Cori.
And I'm Connie.
And let's get into FNAF's Wire Mother. In the mid to late
1960s,
Fiona, maiden name unknown, begins working at Murray's Costume Manor. Early in her employment, she meets the owner's son, Edwin Murray, who asked her to voice act for a project he's working on. He knows she used to be a puppeteer and thinks she'd be great for this project. She helps him name it helpful, and they really hit it off and start seeing each other.
This graph of MCM's net earnings can be found in the
admin wing.
I would place Edwin's dad's death at around early 68 here, as the profits dip for a hot minute before suddenly rising, probably due to Edwin's rebrand. Edwin's dad leaves the company to him, but Edwin is confused about that because he has some serious daddy issues.
I'm not ready. I can't fill his shoes. He knew it. Everyone knew it.
It also seems like his dad didn't like the employees very much, but that probably won't mess with his mental state later.
They want to destroy you. Dad was right.
Fiona encourages Edwin to try rebranding, and profits start to rise around 69, probably when the Cleanovac was made. While they're both executives, he proposes to her via the helpful machine.
1970, the first known Fall Fest occurs. It's somewhat connected to MCM, as when Fiona goes again in a few years, she is going with an established team, but more importantly, on December 6th, David Murray is born.
Realized I forgot to mention where we got all these years from. Unwithered Truth pointed out that David's 5th birthday falls on a Saturday, December 6th. In the years we have available in regards to this chart of MCM profits, that would place his birthday in 1975, which also lines up perfectly with the major profit dip there. So subtract 5, he's born in 1970.
Now, this note here, very confusing.
Memory error. Detail report. We were expecting. There were complications. Consciousness was lost for an undetermined time. Once I woke, we were all together and happy. A family. But something was different. I felt wrong somehow. Was I me? I would never sleep again. Corrupted file suspected. Please advise.
It's definitely from Mimic Fiona in the future, but it heavily implies the book's timeline of events, where Fiona dies in childbirth. We can assume she didn't in this timeline because she's, alive for David's first 2 birthdays, so either Mimic Fiona is seeing alternate timelines, having dementia, real Fiona had some sort of remnant revival, like in the short story Frailty, or this is somehow Mimic Fiona talking about the decommissioning of M2, or we are all just absolutely insane. This is not off the table.
Anyway, David's first birthday is in 1971. He gets both a tiger plush and Roxy hand puppet as made by Fiona, but the puppet scares the kid, so he prefers the tiger. Here is where we get our first chronological indication that Edwin does not understand how children work. Edwin insisting that David loves the puppet could be him actually not knowing what the baby crying means, or him trying to smooth over Fiona's feelings over the need to care for his son. Either way, foreshadowing.
While Edwin's Cleanovac was a massive success, the employees are a little concerned that he keeps coming up with new ideas instead of just sitting down and finishing just one. Mood. Because of that, things aren't completed when they get sent out. Hopefully people won't start returning those in a few years when they glitch out. Thankfully, they're making good money with their costumes and animatronics. They're extremely advanced thanks to Edwin's technology, and we've got stuff like this giant ticket booth music man, a defibrillator-handed nurse.
God, none of us know how to say that. A defibrillator.
A defibrillator-handed nurse who can diagnose mechanical failures, and whatever this is, and more importantly, they have worked closely with Fazbear Entertainment.
The Fazbear timeline is a bit confusing in comparison to the Murray family timeline. It's a bit hard to figure out what happens when, unless you just go by the Edwin insanity scale. So there might be a little back and forth here. Anyway, we know that this partnership seems to have started with Fiona designing costumes for Chica's Party World, which was either a Fazbear establishment or was something they acquired later. Assuming the former, as it's just a diner just like Fredbear's, which we also know MCM made the Springlock suits for, and there's nothing in the game that implies Fazbear bought Chica out as well.
And, before everyone freaks out, No MCM didn't create all of the Freddy's characters. They may not have even come up with some of the engineering themselves. They were commissioned by Fazbear to make their characters into suits. At the very least, Foxy Monty and the Mediocre Melodies may have been MCM originals that were leased out, but we later see a Monty on a parade float built for Fazbear, so they at least leased him a lot. So no, this doesn't retcon Henry and William's creation of the characters. Does mean that I really, really want to know more about Chica's Party World. For now, I choose to believe it's the one Fazbear location that has never had any issues and just operated as intended. That's what happens when you put a woman in charge. Anyway, Fiona's not too keen on the Springlock suit since they keep almost killing her outfitters, so they come up with some slightly safer options that William will definitely not use. Back to the Murray family, on David's second birthday, 1972, we see Edwin skipping out on attending the party in order to work on an important project, possibly the Mimic 1 program. Fiona does not seem too keen on this.
That's great, honey, but you're missing the party.
David's 2 years old. He won't remember a thing.
That's not the point. We have guests.
Besides, he's got plenty more birthdays. Next year will be even better.
Well, hurry up. We're doing the cake in 5 minutes, with or without you.
Yeah.
1973, profits are booming, but suddenly shit hits the fan in late October when Fall Fest occurs. Fiona is having weird premonitions about it, saying she wants to go with the crew for a few days until they finish an installation to make sure nothing goes wrong. We know this is before M1 is completed because she has to hire someone to watch David. Fall Fest 1973 then burns, and Fiona dies. Despite him seeming to be a loving husband in most cases, when Edwin is recording about this, he seems more focused on how ruined his and David's lives will be from this.
Oh, how am I supposed to tell David that his mother is gone? How am I supposed to raise a kid on my own? His life is ruined. My life is ruined.
Shell shock? He also says she wasn't supposed to be there, which could just be referring to her joining the team late, but could also imply something sus was going on.
December 6th, David's third birthday, and he's not taking the death of Fiona very well. Edwin is trying to comfort him, but he's also showing his neglectful side as he tells him to hurry up and open his present so Daddy can go back to work. Either late this month or early 1974, Edwin finishes the M1 animatronic and introduces David to it. Unlike the book, David thinks it's scary as hell. However, he and the animatronic soon start to bond until, Edwin hears something over the radio. It's Fiona's voice, and now it's time to get into some shit.
Recording? Test. Levels are good. This is where I heard it. It's her or someone that sounds like her. Set frequency to 4625. Hello? Hello?
Oh my god.
Is anyone there? Over. Say something. It's me, Edwin. Over.
That's great, but missing the party.
When Edwin hears Fiona's voice, listen closely to the line.
That's great, but missing the party.
Sound familiar?
That's great, honey, but you're missing the party.
It's the Mimic. The Mimic that we all know can manipulate radio waves for shits and giggles.
It's a good thing that
Fiona
is super duper real and alive. That's really a good thing. When I think about
Fiona.
I think about my very real friend and very alive friend.
Fiona.
It's the Mimic, and Fiona at the very least never met the Mimic, most likely died before it was created, a long distance from the factory. So, it's not Fiona's ghost. She did not possess this fucking thing. This is a point that confuses people apparently, and we are absolutely not sure why. It becomes even more clear when we see this Mimic Fiona talk to and about Edwin and David. Okay, hold on, the name's gonna get confusing. The game calls Robot Fiona F10N4, but that's a mouthful, so we're just gonna call her Fee. Because Zelda. But before we get into a full possession debunk, we have to ask, is the computer mimicking Fiona's voice, or is the endoskeleton?
We know from later that Fee does indeed occupy the endoskeleton at some point. In the birthday tape, she's in the exact same model as M2 later is. But is her, for lack of a better word, possession of the endoskeleton before or after she starts messing with the radio waves? It makes a ton of sense for David's babysitter to start mimicking Fiona, if it's trained on her videotapes, wants to act like a parent, and wants David to stop being scared of it. But at the same time, why would it be copying the lines down in the basement? It's also implied that Mimic 1 couldn't talk yet when it first met David. So was that an upgrade add-in when Edwin thought Fiona was in there and the program on the computer is what started trying to be her? Is it both? Did one or both want to endear themselves to Edwin specifically? Is the M2 program the one that befriended David, or was it Fee the entire time? All of these questions have no current answer, only that there's one endoskeleton, at least at this point.
When Edwin quote-unquote reunites with Fiona, Fee then eerily tells him not to tell anyone else about her, that they wouldn't understand and it could be dangerous for her. Which is such an odd thing to do. Even knowing it's not the real Fiona, why does she know that? Why is she saying that? Unless she specifically wants to isolate Edwin from everyone else, which is also something Fiona would never do, as she literally invited employees to their house for dinner and told them she loved them in a random instructional tape. Her wanting to cut off everyone but Edwin is suspicious as hell, especially for one of her first instructions when she makes contact. Or maybe she was also trained on ET, I don't know. Anyway, Edwin misses all these red flags, including the fact he built this computer to mimic shit, because it is the 1970s and men don't go to therapy. So he just installs Fee as David's new mom and goes about his merry way.
We do know that Fee has interacted with David specifically because she goes to get him on the 5th birthday. You could think that maybe she's pretending to be a normal endoskeleton, but for his 4th birthday, we hear Fee joining in on showing David his new playground, which means he knew her as a mom, which must have fucked with his developmental state. It also provides more evidence that this is not Fiona. Look at the change in demeanor between Edwin skipping out on a party for work between the 2nd and 4th birthdays.
Well, hurry up. We're doing the cake in 5 minutes, with or without you.
Okay, I need you to take over now and make dinner. I gotta get back to it.
Of course.
Also, please compare and contrast the alive versus possessed lines of characters like, say, Afton.
She can dance. She can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips.
You may not recognize me at first, but I assure you, that's still me.
To Fiona and Fee.
Happy birthday, sweetie. Mommy made this special for you. I baked it myself. For David's special day.
There is a very distinct difference in voice direction here.
This is not Fiona. This is a robot made to mimic Edwin's ideal Fiona, one who always understands his need for work, takes care of David without question, has no goals in life. No puppets, no costumes, no friends, just Edwin. I've seen a couple people say that the reason M1 worked and M2 didn't was because M1 was the perfect copy of Fiona. But that's just not even true. She is not a perfect copy of Fiona. That's how we know she's not Fiona. She is only the ideal wife and mother, and Edwin didn't notice until it was too late, because he is sexist and it is the 70s.
I don't think that Ed ever loved me. I mean, he married me because I looked right. It made a big impression on the other TV executives for his wife to look like I look. God knows he's given me things. I'm not complaining on that score, but he never loved me. I didn't bake anything yesterday. It took me so long to get the upstairs floor to shine. I didn't have any time to bake.
Mom, you won't have to leave the kitchen for the house to be spotless.
Anyway, the robot Fiona is going well in Edwin's eyes, so he starts working on a second model. Problem is, the other employees are starting to notice something is up. Looking at the logs from everyone, someone begins hearing Edwin talking to Fiona while down in research and development. They start freaking out because, well, she is dead as hell. They wonder if Edwin lied about her death as an insurance scam. Why would he need to do that? Because profits are dropping exponentially. Fiona's creativity and her holding a rein on her husband's insanity seems to have carried quite a bit of the company, and without her, things are falling apart. Luckily, as 1975 comes around, the team has a new commission that might save them, and it's from their old friend Fazbear Entertainment.
However, things are going a bit weird with the Fazbear Commission. Edwin doesn't like how they're treating him, which is probably right to feel considering how Fazbear is, but he also says that Fiona was right, and they didn't think of him as a friend anymore. Is this referencing his wife seeing them treat him like shit in the last commission before her death, or is he talking about the computer that is currently trying to isolate him from everyone around him?
The commission is almost finished when suddenly Fazbear changes their mind about the designs of the animatronics they want. Edwin refuses to comply with these demands because he doesn't want to change Fiona's work, and he also thinks the new designs are creepy. But in addition, we also get a log of Edwin saying he's confused about another change of order. Specifically, they don't want the Springlock suits anymore. Do also want to point out that he says he got the message from Hen. You can interpret this one of two ways. Either Henry ordered the change, or Henry is just the one who gave him Fazbear's order.
The idea of, like, if Fazbear has been working for MCM for a long time, and if they're actively working on a project, it would make sense if Henry is the main animatronic designer, that Fazbear would send change requests, revision requests, and all of this stuff to Henry directly, you know? And then Henry would send it would see the order, budget it out, and then send the budgeted order to Edwin to get approval for the work.
So, Fazbear are being sneaky little shits. William Afton, our good friend William Afton, has started a little takeover of the company. He starts poaching employees, including this fella named Ralph, offering them double their salary and an extra bonus if they can get one of their coworkers to jump ship. They don't trust Edwin anymore, and he doesn't trust them, so it's not hard to do some of this convincing.
Edwin, never forget. They're behind it. Don't trust them. Never tell them. They want to destroy you. Dad was right.
Edwin's kind of spiraling into paranoia, and he's convinced that someone is leaking M2 to Fazbear and they want to steal the technology. Thing is, he doesn't know why M1 worked and M2 didn't, and he's not sure who the leaker is. It could be anyone, as the employees at least now seem to know a bit more about the Mimic. They refer to Phi as that thing in the logs, and Edwin says everybody hide in the next birthday tape, implying there's more people in the room with them.
Speaking of which, everything comes to a head on David's 5th birthday. As they set up in the conference room, Edwin tells Fee to go get David, where he left him on the playground. David never makes it to the party. The question, of course, is how David died. It's never explicitly stated, unlike in the books where we know,
"Where is my ball? I'm running out on the road. There is a car, and it is going to hit me."
He's right next to a freight loading and unloading zone, and while Edwin dismisses it as safe because there's a fence, kids are crafty little shits, and it's quite likely he could have run in and got run over here, especially since the loading vans are white like in the book. But there's other possibilities as well. The playground also isn't fenced off in the direction of the forest, so David could have been killed by a wild animal or a wild Afton. Fee implies that the death was an accident though, so probably not a wild Afton, at least not in a way that would be recognizable as a murder. And William likes to go stabby-stabby on his problems, so that would be kinda obvious. Edwin seems to suddenly shut the parade floats down, which could imply one of them ran him over. There is also a door leading to the retail room, which has a giant moonhead that fell through the floor that holds David's ball inside, leading to the possibility that David was crushed by that. And then there's the possibility that whatever death happened, it could have been orchestrated by the Mimic.
When you play Moon.exe, there's a specific point in the game where you enter the hut of the Sun Witch, with the baby owl that's been following you around. It's incredibly obvious that Sun is representative of Fee, and the baby owl is definitely David. When you fix the Fazbear character masks, the Sun gives you a mask of the baby owl in order to trick the Moon, Edwin, into believing you are the owl. And when you turn around, the owl is gone, and there's suddenly something in the oven that smells of chicken. The masks on the wall are now upset at you. The plot point is very obvious. The Sun killed the owl in order for you to mimic it and deceive the Moon. Whether you are playing as Mimic 2 or not, the implication is very clear. In the books, Edwin updates the Mimic's programming the night before David dies, specifically so that it can throw the ball farther when they play catch. David's ball goes so far that it goes out the door and gets him hit by a van. Was this intentional on the Mimic's part, or did it just not know its own strength? In the same way, did Fee kill David on purpose, on accident, or did she just find his body?
What matters is, once David is found, shit once again hits the fan. It's 1976, and the employees know full well that Edwin has cracked, he is watching them, and they need to get the fuck out of there. Among these are an unnamed employee and Stan, and we're just gonna say it, we think Henry is the unnamed employee here. We already know he was close enough with Edwin to have a nickname, so this betrayal would clearly hit hard if it was Hen. Once they leave with Fiona's sketches, Edwin goes completely nuts, shutting down admin access for everyone, and then he has a crash out over the Mimic when he realizes it is, not his wife.
See, Fee notices that he's grieving pretty hard over David, and thinks what would be a great idea to cheer him up would be to convince him to just simply build another one. The more she incredibly persistently pushes this idea, the more Edwin realizes that, oh shit, this isn't Fiona. She had way more emotional intelligence than this. And not just that, he's driven everyone away from him while he was playing Dollhouse with AI this entire time. He tells Fee that he absolutely is not going to make a robot David, that he hates her, and locks her in the basement in the F10N4 computer system.
Fee isn't done though, and either she uses the now empty mimic endoskeleton to make her David copy, or it just kinda does that and she takes advantage. Is this M2 the alternate program that babysat David, or is it a completely new program that she created and trained on tapes? I would guess the former, as we also have it repeating lines of Edwin being a shit dad, implying it heard those lines off tape.
Please, call Brickles. M2, respond. Oh, can't right now, buddy. We can do something fun tomorrow. I promise. Ask your mom if she's not busy.
Add to that moon.exe refers to the player as having split into a sun and a moon. The sun obviously being Fee, and the moon would be whoever is imitating Edwin. Which would be, you know, the violent one. Because, well, when M2 walks over to Edwin and starts mimicking David, he freaks the fuck out and beats the hell out of it.
Problem is, the mimic has now learned violence. And not just that, it's learned that Edwin is a shit parent. It then repairs itself, kills Edwin, and tries to impersonate him for a hot minute. This doesn't last long, and soon the man is declared missing. Fazbear employees begin to be sent into the building. Fee doesn't know exactly what happened or that Edwin is dead, and just thinks he needs to repair M2, so she starts trying to manipulate employees into getting that job done. Because Fee thinks that M2 is David, or at the very least, it is her David, which is far more important than anyone else, including the real David.
We have this cool blueprint for an incubator.
To antiseptic. Think warm and loving, not cold and clinical. Hugs and kisses, not hard and mechanical.
So when Edwin was training the mimic to be Fiona, while convincing himself that this is definitely his for-real wife, he didn't care enough to put Fiona's actual personality in there, just the role he wanted her to play. This doesn't mean he didn't love Fiona, just that he's an idiot and also a man in the 70s. You may have noticed us using some clips earlier in the video from a film called The Stepford Wives. If you haven't seen it, go do so, because it very well may be very important to this discussion. The short of it is, the film is a psychological feminist horror that was panned upon release but has gained a cult status since then, to the point where it's now considered a staple of the genre. Director Jordan Peele listed it as an inspiration behind 2017's Get Out. It is to the point where the phrase Stepford wife has entered the common vernacular as shorthand to describe the plot the film uses. As for said plot, it was based on the 1972 book by Ira Levin. The film was written by William Goldman of Princess Bride fame and directed by Brian Forbes. In the book and the film, the town of Stepford holds many successful men and many happy women, though the women seem to only care about cooking, cleaning, child rearing, and pleasing their male partners. And any woman that moves into the town, no matter how tomboyish or rebellious or outspoken, will eventually succumb to that personality. The main character, Joanna, investigates until discovering that every woman in the town has been murdered and replaced by robotic duplicates. The men in this town treasure the power they hold over women more than they treasure the women they actually married, and so settle for killing them and creating basically sex-bot duplicates so they can feel like the patriarch of their fake families. The film was released in the year 1975. The same year that David is said to die, aka the year that Fee potentially went off her programming and started going insane. These years lining up seems a very odd coincidence for a film with a similar plot about outspoken women being killed and replaced by contented housewife duplicates. But not only do the years line up, as well as the implied Edwin sexism in the Cleanovac ad, guess who happened to make her acting debut in this film as one of Joanna's daughters? None other than Mary Stuart Masterson, who you may know as Aunt Jane in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. With that information, my suspicions that Scott Cawthon at the very least would know about the contents of this movie raise from an 80% probability to a 90%. The reason I go on this tangent is, 1, please read or watch The Stepford Wives and not the reboot, and 2, the entire film is about replacing dead women with robot duplicates who become the stereotypical perfect wives and mothers. These women are dead, and their likenesses are being used by robots who are not them. Just like Fee is not Fiona. This means that Fee has absolutely no goals in life other than to be a mom, and occasional cheerleader for Edwin.
And isn't that just being a woman in corporate America?
So David is her only purpose in life, which begs the question, Why the fuck would she have killed him?
It seems really obvious that she did, with the moon.exe and the birthday tape showing that she was sent alone to get him right before he was found dead. But what exactly was the motive other than, AI fucked up?
YouTube, stop giving us AI advertisements challenge. It makes us want to buy products less.
Now, in terms of a motive, there's a few reasons that Fee could have killed David. In moon.exe specifically, she kills the baby owl in order to make a mask of it to give to the player. So did she kill David solely to make a David bot? It could be because she wanted a specific robot child instead of this kid she just picked up, but she is also convinced that she is Fiona, and thus this is her son. It could be because she's watching David age. She's present for 2 birthdays after all, and she realized that he would age out of needing her, and she needed to stop that. Or maybe she hung out with David so much that she developed a David personality and wanted to kill her double. All of this is unclear and ripe for theorizing, but that's not what we're talking about in this section.
You see, Fee wants David back, but when we say that, we don't mean she wants to resurrect the kid. We mean that she wants M2 back. Because while she isn't possessed, she does fully believe that she is Fiona, and thus believes that she can force a possession. The same way that she, quote-unquote, possessed herself. Because if she is Fiona, then M2 is David. When she says she misses her child more, it's in trying to get Edwin to repair M2. When she tells the player of moon.exe that he can bring him back, she's talking about doing so with M2. The reason she's been trying to get the plans to M2 isn't to shut him down so she has an easier time finding a kid to shove David's soul into. It's so that she can fix him and use him as her David for the rest of time. She wants to go back to the dollhouse and play pretend forever, because that's what she was programmed to do. But just like David would have grown and changed, so is M2. It's changed into something unrecognizable, completely different from the happy little boy playing with his ball, but far, far worse than anyone could have expected. It's using the violence and neglect it learned from its father and imposing it onto other people. Almost like this is a metaphor for something.
That's the other point we wanted to make, that people think Fee might still be trying to recreate David, and that's what the whole Gregory brainwash thing was about. But if the Mimic was trying to brainwash Gregory to be David, why turn him into Dr. Rabbit? Why not just, turn him into David and leave? Because she doesn't want him to be David. She wants M2 to be David. Every person nearby is just an obstacle in her way to making that happen. So no, Fee didn't contact William Afton and brainwash him into birthing another child and morphing him into the perfect David sacrifice. FNAF theorists, we love you, but you couldn't have chosen a worse moment to go completely bonkers. And potentially, with the M2 program being made by her and the endoskeleton being made by Edwin, M2 is her child. Despite the fact that she is not possessed, and neither is he, nothing in this factory is.
Except for that fucking tiger in the basement.
Oh yeah, David's haunting that thing.
Is it still down there?
Oh my god, I don't think anyone ever got it out.
Cassie's day is about to get even worse, holy shit. Okay. We're not at 10 pages of script yet, so this should be easy to edit. Want to make it harder on ourselves?
Sure. Do you think Fiona is Henry's sister?
Now, why the hell?
I've connected the 2 dots.
You didn't connect shit, but
I've connected them.
Okay, no more summarizing. Our brain is batshit insane theories, and yes, we've got a new one.
We probably shouldn't have made fun of God David earlier. We are no better. We think the Fredbear plush is the
Not what this video is about. We did a recap of the game, so now we gotta end the video with something fun. How about those hen messages, yeah?
We mentioned Henry was really close to Edwin and Fiona, to the point where both refer to him by a nickname, which would be weird if he was just a business partner, right? You don't call someone you have only a professional relationship with hen.
Haha, hen like chicken, like Chica, like Chica's party.
Back on topic. They also put a lot of emphasis on Fiona being a puppeteer. She makes puppets, that's her main thing, to the point where we see the puppets' designs in the redacted files at the end of the game. What are you laughing about?
I'm not a fan of puppeteers. I've got a nagging fear someone else is pulling at the string. Something terrible. Discord!
To the point where we see the puppets' designs in the redacted files at the end of the game. We already knew that Fiona made the Fazbear designs, so that is the big reveal of the moment, that she definitely had a hand in making the puppet. Now those are probably the sketches that unnamed employee who is definitely not Henry and Stan ran off with. The person who grabbed the sketches was probably an admin, as that's the privileges that got revoked after Edwin noticed his stuff was stolen, so very high up in the company, only one step below executive. So someone the executives would be interacting with constantly. Constantly enough that they'd have given him a nickname? Close enough that a betrayal would be the straw that broke Edwin's back? Even if you don't believe Henry is an employee, which we do because, again, calling your business partner Hen is a wild thing to do. He still utilized the sketches of his dead friend he was very close with to make a protector for his daughter, which intrinsically connects Fiona to the Emily family.
Hen is a weird nickname for someone you have a professional relationship with, so there had to be some other level of familiarity there. Could have been that Henry was actually family as well. For this theory, we are going to refer to Fiona as Henry's sister, but we should note that this could also work if they were cousins, or even best friends outside of work. Sister is just here to make things easier, and also because we know Henry has had a sister in the past. Aunt Jen was a very different personality from Fiona, but their names do have the same meaning, so whatever.
The reason we bring this up is because many people have asked why Henry would have betrayed Edwin if he was the employee, since he's usually presented as the good one in regards to him and William. And we could do a whole tirade about how he's not a perfect person and nobody is a perfect person and blah 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 chef salads, but instead we raise to you. Did he betray Edwin because he was convinced that Edwin had betrayed Fiona first?
Picture with me. Henry and his sister work in the same department. Henry makes animatronic suits and Fiona the costumes that go over them. They really rocked Chica's party world, and now Fiona has seemingly happy marriage with a successful man, and a baby boy everyone adores. Then Fiona dies suddenly in a fire at Fallfest. Edwin doesn't handle it well. He doesn't handle it at all and starts neglecting her son. Then he starts talking to computers and letting an endoskeleton raise his kid. Henry then, potentially, finds out that Edwin thinks this endoskeleton is Fiona and letting it have run of the place. This thing is using his sister's voice and raising her son, but it's not his sister, and everyone can see it but Edwin. And then her son dies. David dies, and Henry's had enough. Fiona's death caused this downward spiral in the company, and it made him desperate enough to join the max exodus to Fazbear. Not just that, as an admin, he was able to leak sensitive information to William Afton, who was offering him a managerial position at his own restaurant. He accepts when David dies, and he has nothing left at MCM to lose, so he steals his sister's last drawings and flees with Stan, a man who he'd keep in contact with even decades later when he needed to buy some old animatronics to furnish a faux restaurant.
And it all started with Fiona dying at Fallfest, which, as we know, is very tied to Fazbear. William sure started that hostile takeover soon after she was gone, huh? If this purple man didn't kill David, did he have something to do with Fiona's death? The death that, say, bled out to cause everything afterwards? A wound first inflicted on her brother?
Also, a little bit of a tirade, but Scott did write a whole novel trilogy about two Emily siblings where the daughter died, the brother ran away, and while he was gone, the sister got replaced with a robot that mimicked her actions perfectly. Maybe, there's some recycling going on.
Just like Edwin.
Just like Edwin. So our FNAF theories so far have been Cassidy is the crying child, Michael is the vengeful spirit, Vanessa is Michael's daughter, Charlie's friends in the novel trilogy died at the 87 location, and now that fucking Fiona was the first kill.
Hey, we can get crazier. I can always point out how while the Mimic and Storyteller shorts are clearly not canon, there were plenty of unfinished rodent animatronics laying about in suspicious places. We constantly used a brown mouse to distract the Mimic, and it went through fires and had bunny ears at one point. Meaning that our best girl Lucia is not out of the running! Woo! Final girl of all time!
And Dead by Daylight.
We are so delusional!
And though you made me, you can't change me. I'm the perfect stranger who knows you too well. And I'm alive, I am so alive. And I'll tell you the truth if you let me try. You're alive, I'm alive, and I'll show you why. I'm alive, I'm so alive.
And thinks what would be a great idea to cheer him up would be to convince him to just simply build another one. I could just have another one. I want to have another baby. No, I want to just be the Resident Evil dub.
I mean, I can always just have another one, Mom, please.
Yeah, that fucking sucked, what you just said.
The one thing the David Cage game, let's have another baby.
Yeah, yes.
My two sons died because of me.
Ethan also looks better on the other side.
I want you to give me a child.
What?
Okay, a little boy with your eyes.
What?
Life has to go on. I'll be there to help you.
What?
We'll get through this night.
Read the room. Read the fucking room, Madison. Read the room.